Tonight, the 500,000 mark. America crosses a grim milestone.
It's something off a bad horror movie.
The latest on the COVID relief bill, the vaccine, and more as the COVID-19 death toll surpasses 500,000.
And in Texas, a disaster declaration.
No running water at all.
Millions still without water, even as the thaw settles in and the devastation in the Lone Star State comes into focus.
Plus, unintended consequences.
We can see that it would immediately be stripping religious Americans and stripping girls and women of our equal rights.
Why some say the Equality Act may be anything but equal.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Full loss of the coronavirus takes a tragic toll. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. Thank you for joining us. Well, tonight, a grim milestone in the COVID-19 pandemic, even as new case numbers are falling. The staggering death toll reaching 500,000 people.
Jenna, just a year ago, that number wasn't even in the realm of reason. Estimates were much lower. Here now for the latest, senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener. Tara, where do we go from here?
Well, John, that number almost doubles the highest estimates from last spring. In fact, more than 250,000 deaths attributed to the virus just since November. If there's any positive, health experts tonight say the numbers are going down. As the nation continues to increase vaccinations, Dr. Anthony Fauci says he's not convinced the recent decline in infections is due to herd immunity.
It's dramatically down with a sharp deflection. We've got to be really careful and not just say, okay, we're finished now, we're through it. We have variants out there that could actually set us back.
Fauci's comments come as America reaches a painful and once unimaginable milestone.
My sister-in-law was so sick, she couldn't even get out of bed to say goodbye to her own mother. And to think that you could be 20 feet away from your mom, the person you care for, and not be able to say goodbye.
In Washington, lawmakers and the White House marking the day with a moment of silence.
In remembrance of more than 500,000 Americans who've passed away from the COVID-19 virus.
Since the country's first COVID-related death on February 29, 2020, we have seen more Americans die than the number of U.S. soldiers killed in 2 world wars, the Korean War and Vietnam combined. That breaks down to 1,400 deaths each day for 357 days in a row.
We've still had to turn away some families because we've just been bombarded. COVID is a disease that's robbing a lot of families. And we're here to help people, but at the same time, we have to be realistic as far as what we can handle.
Recent studies confirm COVID-19 is far more deadly than the seasonal flu, with COVID patients nearly 5 times more likely to die than those with the flu. Among COVID's victims, more than 3,000 healthcare workers on the front lines.
She had a lot of residents where she took care of, and she was so a part of their lives, she ended up being in a lot of their obituaries.
More than 43 million Americans have now received at least 1 dose of vaccine. Now, with some shipments held up by the weather, FedEx and UPS are making up for lost time.
We've been able to get about 2 million of those 6 million doses out. We expect to rapidly catch up this week.
And in another positive sign, the COVID tracking report shows falling COVID hospitalizations, falling for 40 straight days. John and Jenna, hard to believe we've been doing this for a year now.
Yeah, it certainly is. That is good news, though. All right, thank you, Tara. And joining us now is CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson. Lori, we understand 1.6 million vaccine doses are now being given out each day, which is the most we've seen in this whole thing. But isn't that still far below where we need to be?
It is, Jenna. We're talking right now about 13% of all Americans have gotten at least 1 dose of the vaccine. And we really need to get up to a approximately 70% of Americans getting both doses. So we still have a long way to go. It does look like we are on track, however, to reach President Biden's goal of giving 100 million doses in his first 100 days of office. That's about the end of April, but that's still just a far way from where we really need to be to sort of get a handle on this virus.
Lori, as Tara pointed out in her story, the winter storm kind of delayed some of the rollout. So when can people expect to get their vaccines?
So that's getting back on track, and the demand still far outstrips the supply. It looks like now it's going to be until July before anybody who wants a vaccine can get it. We realize that there are certain people who are prioritized. There is, however, something that could be a game changer. I'm talking about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which could be given emergency use authorization by the FDA as soon as the end of this month. And remember, the J&J vaccine is just one dose and only has to be refrigerated, not that deep freezing that the other two vaccines have to endure. And so this is great for people who live in rural areas, in urban communities. It's a lot easier to administer.
Yeah, that's great news. We'll hope for the end of this month. You know, the lower cases and deaths make people think that this is kind of the beginning of the end, Lori. Do you think that they're right in thinking that way? And what do experts say we can expect when we might see this pandemic behind us?
Well, what experts are looking at, Jenna, to see whether or not we're in the clear is whether the cases in the community are down and the vaccinations are up. And we are nowhere near that level right now. As you mentioned, the cases are down 73%, but we're talking about 73% down from the beginning of November. We're still much higher as far as caseloads than we were this summer and even into September. So we still have a long way to go before we reduce the number of cases in the community and then also increase the immunity through vaccinations or through people who have recovered from the virus. About 10% of the population is in that group.
Lori, as we were just talking about, a year into this, as our medical reporter, you've been turning stories round the clock, keeping us informed about the pandemic for about a year now. What does this mile marker bring to mind for you?
Well, it's just a tragedy of unspeakable epic proportions. But really what comes to mind to me, John, is my thoughts are focused on the people who have really stepped up to the plate to try to make things better, who have done their part. I'm talking about the frontline healthcare workers, obviously the scientists who developed these vaccines, but also everyday regular citizens who are wearing their masks and social distancing and sacrificing time with their friends and their families to prevent getting the virus and also spreading the virus, which to me is a way to love your fellow man and to love your neighbor as yourself.
All right. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lori.
Thanks for having me.
Well, on Capitol Hill, lawmakers could be getting one step closer to passing the latest round of COVID relief.
That is right. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us. And Ben, congressional Democrats in the House released the full text of that bill. Can you tell us what's in it?
Yeah, Jenna, they did. It's money for vaccines, schools, and people, just to name a few. But let's break down some of the highlights of the bill. The COVID relief package includes $1,400 direct checks to Americans making $75,000 or less a year. It extends the $400 federal unemployment benefits. Money is also set aside for schools, vaccines, and small businesses hard hit by the pandemic. The bill includes an increase in the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour. Now, today, President Joe Biden announced changes to the Paycheck Protection Program, saying that starting Wednesday, small businesses with fewer than 20 employees will have a 2-week exclusive window to apply for the funding. The commander-in-chief says the help is needed now more than ever, with 400,000 small businesses closed and others, President Biden says, are holding by a thread, which is why the next round of COVID relief would help.
We will ensure every dollar is spent well. These changes will bring much needed, long overdue to help to small businesses who really need help staying open, maintaining jobs, and making ends meet. And this is a starting point, not the ending point. We need Congress to pass my American Rescue Plan. It deals with the immediate crisis facing our small businesses.
So Biden was talking about the American Rescue Plan. The big question is, where is the bill now? Well, we're told it'll be on the House floor sometime later this week for a vote. Then it heads to the Senate, where Democrats hold a very narrow lead. John, Jenna?
All right, thanks, Ben Kennedy. Well, it is official. President Biden's predecessor will be the closing act this Sunday, speaking at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Orlando. This will be President Trump's first public appearance since leaving the White House. He's expected to talk about the future of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. He'll also likely criticize President Biden's immigration moves, which some Republicans are calling amnesty. Trump reportedly is considering a 2024 presidential run. Former Vice President Mike Pence declined speaking at the conference.
Tonight, Merrick Garland, President Biden's pick for Attorney General, is the latest Biden nominee in the hot seat.
If I am confirmed as Attorney General, it will be the culmination of a career I have dedicated to ensuring that the laws of our country are fairly and faithfully enforced and the rights of all Americans are protected.
And he might look familiar once up for a lifetime appointment as Supreme Court Justice under President Obama. The Senate is widely expected to confirm the appeals court judge on a bipartisan basis.
Well, joining us now, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, welcome back to Faith Nation. Merrick Garland's nomination there is expected to sail through the Senate. There are a couple of others out there that may prove to be a little bit more contentious. For example, Neera Tanden, Biden's pick to be the White House budget director. Biden says he'll find the votes even though Senators Romney, Collins, and Manchin are all opposed to her nomination. David, that's a tall order. What's the likelihood he'll be able to drum up those votes?
No, it's almost at zero. I don't want to put it at zero, but it's close to zero. Look, you have to have 50 votes. And if Manchin is off the table, that puts you, here's my math, John. I took math in like 7th grade and not since then. And 49, right? If you lose one, that's 50 to 40. Now you're down to 49. You need 50. And Romney is a no, and Collins is a no, so you're not going to get any Republican help there. So Biden needs some Republican help. He needs basically one more a Republican. You're not going to get a Lisa Murkowski, most likely, or a couple others. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think this will be the first victim, if you will, as it relates to his confirmation process.
David, what about Javier Becerra, Biden's pick to head up HHS? Today, the National Pro-Life Coalition sent a letter to the Senate urging senators to reject Becerra's nomination.
Yeah, Jenna, when you're suing nuns in California, that's not good to have on the resume, especially when you're going up to be nominated for HHS secretary. That's exactly what Javier Becerra did when he was Attorney General in California. This was the Little Sisters of the Poor case regarding contraception and the Obamacare mandate. So, you know, there's an issue there. And you mentioned the pro-life letter, but you know what? Just in the last few hours or so, the pro-life Democrats, Kristen Day, her group has come out against Javier Becerra. So this is a big contentious one. This will get a lot of headlines. The good news for Biden here is that there doesn't seem at this point to be a Democrat that's going to say no. We'll watch Manchin. We'll watch Kyrsten Sinema. But at this point, he probably will get by. We'll see.
Shifting gears a little bit here, David, former President Trump is set to speak at CPAC this weekend, while former Vice President Mike Pence declined the invitation. David, what does that say about the status of the two top party leaders heading into the big conservative confab?
Well, it says something very simple. This is Donald Trump's Republican Party. Full stop. That's the end of it. Mike Pence, look, I don't have any personal knowledge as to why Mike Pence declined the invitation, but the reality is I can pretty much figure it out knowing Mike Pence the way I do the last 15 plus years or so. Mike Pence is a guy that, two things. One, doesn't want to hog the spotlight. He'll let the spotlight go with Donald Trump. But number two, and more importantly, actually, so let's make it number one, the truth of the matter is that Mike Pence right now doesn't feel like it's a time, most likely, to speak out. Let it all die down. Let it play out. Mike Pence a lot more measured, I would even say, than Donald Trump at times.
David, a Suffolk poll says nearly half of Republicans would leave the Grand Old Party for an alternative Trump party. To your point, how likely do you think that is? Could Trump, in fact, start his own party and go at it alone?
Well, he could, and I'm sure he's thinking about it and entertaining it. Here's the problem. Republicans will lose. It's just that simple. I mean, you're not going to have 85% of Republicans. Even that poll, Jenna, you just said, it's not 85% of Republicans that would go along with it. So you split the party. You split the party, you lose the Democrats every time.
All right, David Brody, we got to leave it there. Thanks, David.
You bet.
Coming up, even as warmer weather rolls in, ruined homes and millions without drinking water leaves Texas in recovery mode. More on that when Faith Nation returns.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. Well, warmer weather has returned to Texas finally after last week's devastating winter storm. But serious problems are still there as millions, John, still don't have drinking water.
That's right. Many homes have been ruined and some customers are facing sky-high power bills. CBN's Dale Hurd has the story.
Texas may have thawed out, but millions of residents are dealing with a serious water shortage and sky-high electric bills. Houston's boil water advisory has been lifted, but an estimated 10 million Texans are still without safe drinking water. The good news, full power is expected to be restored to the state today.
I suspect that all power will be fully restored across the state of Texas to every house.
The bad news, some are getting astronomical electric bills, one as high as $17,000 after a spike in the energy market.
You know, you're being held hostage and you can't do anything about it. How in the world can anyone pay that?
The governor announced a moratorium on utilities disconnecting service if a customer can't pay their electric or water, and he's looking into ways to reduce those bills. But many Texans remain outraged at being without electricity for 7 days.
It's ridiculous and it's unacceptable, and it's a failure on so many levels and on so many individuals.
Many homes have also been ruined by burst pipes. Texas power providers are also facing a $100 million lawsuit from the family of 11-year-old Christian Pavone. They claim their son died of hypothermia after they lost electricity in their mobile home. And across the South, residents in many hospitals are facing a water shortage.
And as you see, no running water at all.
The White House has issued a disaster declaration for 77 Texas counties. Governor Abbott called it an important first step, but is asking for it to be expanded to the entire state. Operation Blessing's Hunger Strike Force has been busy, delivering truckloads of water to Texas residents through several churches. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
And you can find out more about how you can help Operation Blessing and what they're doing in Texas by going to ob.org. When we come back, why some say the Equality Act is anything but, how the measure to protect the rights of some could impinge on the rights of others.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Well, welcome back. A controversial bill known as the Equality Act is expected to move through Congress this week after President Joe Biden called on lawmakers to pass it quickly.
The measure is designed to overhaul the nation's civil rights laws to include LGBTQ Americans and expand on legal protections for them. But many worry it will trample on the rights of women and people of faith. Jennifer Wichon explains.
Under the Equality Act, disagreement is discrimination. It includes gay marriage, men competing in women's sports, and doctors performing procedures like gender reassignments that go against their conscience. It's a bill the president wants to sign into law during his first 100 days. The Equality Act provides long overdue federal civil rights protections for LGBTQ+ Americans, preventing discrimination in our housing, education, public services, and lending systems, the president tweeted. But the bill does much more.
We can see that it would immediately be stripping religious Americans and stripping girls and women of our equal rights.
By redefining sex discrimination, the measure would provide for abortion on demand, likely end a long-standing prohibition on taxpayer-funded abortions, and remove conscience protections for doctors and nurses. Biological men would be allowed to compete in women's sports, effectively obliterating Title IX, while girls and women would be forced to share locker rooms and bathrooms in schools and public places. Harley says we don't have to guess about the results. Just look at cities and states that have already passed similar laws.
In Alaska, the city of Anchorage had a law like this and punished a faith-based homeless shelter for battered women and actually forced them to allow biological men who identified as women to sleep and change clothes alongside these women, most of whom were victims of rape and sex trafficking.
She says the Equality Act allows for subjectivity, an issue Senator James Lankford raised last summer on the Senate floor.
If I go to interview in a job and I'm not hired, I can sue that employer because I perceive they were thinking I was gay, and so they didn't hire me. I don't have to prove anything. It's based simply on my perception or belief.
Under the bill, Christian beliefs are unlawful. Churches could be prevented from requiring employees to abide by their biblical beliefs about marriage and differences between men and women. Alliance Defending Freedom is litigating a case in Virginia, a state that recently passed a law like the Equality Act.
Churches are banned from having a dress code, having a code of conduct for their employees, even asking in interviews if potential employees share core religious beliefs.
Harley and others opposed to the legislation say tolerance must be a two-way street.
I think the Equality Act treats people of faith as second-class citizens. It specifies a certain point of view and it labels it as bigotry.
Speaker Pelosi wants a vote in the House this week where it's expected to pass overwhelmingly. It will need 60 votes in the evenly divided Senate. At least one Democrat opposes it, and it's unclear how many Republicans might support it. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Coming up, this cancer survivor reached for the stars and is headed to the moon.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
And finally tonight, she beat bone cancer at 10 years old and is now inspiring others with her historic journey to space.
What a story it is, Jenna. Haley Arsenault was chosen as a member of the first all-civilian spaceflight, appropriately named Inspiration 4. Haley also serves as a physician assistant and spokesperson for St. Jude, which is receiving $100 million in fundraising. The 29-year-old will become the youngest American and the first cancer survivor in space. Now she's taking her story to the ultimate platform to inspire hope in others experiencing life challenges.
Wow, she's got a book in her.
No doubt.
Overcome a lot of obstacles, done some neat things.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for watching Faith Nation.
Have a great night.